I understand it can be intimidating trying to grow a fan base from scratch and become a full-time musician when you've got all these different social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, just kind of begging for your attention. And it's like, what do you focus on? And I see a lot of artists starting to burn out. But when it comes to social media versus me focusing on growing my Spotify, Spotify is the only one that's sending me checks every single week, every single month, nonstop, right? Where I invest all this time into social media posts, and yet when's the last time you ever looked at a social media post that you posted 24 or 48 hours ago? It's kind of gone into the land of forgetfulness, right? Yet our songs and our catalog of songs can last for years, and they continue to make us money year after year, month after month. And so when you go into this new year, I want to challenge you in this video to focus on Spotify, who's now in over 184 countries. But before we get started, I want to know in the comments, let me know what platform you've been focusing on. Has it been Spotify, Bandcamp, SoundCloud, YouTube? Post it in the comments below, and I'm going to try to respond to as many as I can. The first reason I think you should focus on Spotify in the new year is because Spotify is focused on artists, and they care about each individual song. They don't judge you based on how many streams you have or how many followers you have or what your social media is. They're looking at each individual song and the hit potential that it has. Like, your song has a shot. If it's a hit song, it's getting saves, it's getting added to indie playlists, fans are adding it, fans are sharing it, it's got a low skip rate. Spotify is giving it a chance and not judging you based on where you're at right now, but where you can go. But before we move on, I want you to listen to Raymond, who's an artist manager who has worked directly with Spotify, and what he has to say before you even release a song.
Like, everything that you put out should be an extension of yourself. It's not just about submitting the song and trying to get playlists. It's looking at it holistically and thinking, right, where will this sit at radio? Where will this sit with brands? How will this connect with artists in media? Before we even submit, we kind of consider, do we have everything else ready to go? So it just has its best chance. So that song has its best chance to exist in the sphere of Spotify. Playlist, to me, it's about discovery. It's such an incredible tool when used properly to build an audience. You can bring people from all across the world into your artist world, and I think playlisting is crucial to finding audiences outside of your home territory. And also today, that I think musicians are so much more international, and it's because of the way that playlisting works and also the way that people discover music. I think it's really helped that. It's really kind of leveled the playing field a little bit for discovering, especially indie artists. 25 years ago, there was more of a club, a closed industry, and I think money was the driving force in determining where and how your music was broken, whether it be through radio or big marketing campaigns. Playlisting levels it out for the artist who's making music in their bedroom or signed to an indie or eventually signed to a major. It's really kind of a really fantastic and exciting time, I think, for music when you think about it like that.
What I loved about what Ali said is that the gatekeepers are gone, and now there's more opportunity than ever for artists to get their music out there, especially internationally. Now, I've been around for 22 years, and I can tell you that it was not fun. It wasn't good back in the old days where there was just these gatekeepers, these labels, where you literally had to sign a deal if you wanted to get into that market, if you wanted to tour there. But now with international and Spotify, your music can be streaming in Mexico, Poland, Australia, France, all these different countries without you even touring there. So trust me when you say, we have it better than ever, and there is more opportunity than ever, especially with these playlisting and just even putting your music out there and the algorithm sharing. It's just so powerful. Now, speaking of decades ago, what I love about Spotify is the shelf life of a song. Like, our songs, compared to social media, have a longer shelf life. I go back and I listen to songs that are decades old. Fans still today listen to my music that are decades old, and I'm still making tons of money, as opposed to that social media post that is here today and gone tomorrow. So it really challenges you, like, what do I focus on the most? And I really want to challenge you to focus on the music. Now, before you rush out and put a song out there or start doing all these social media posts, I want you to hear what Ali has to say about planning the release.
When submitting music for any of our artists, we use the playlist pitch tool. Giving the editorial team and people time to discover is really, really important for us. And I know if things are rushed, that's when you're less likely to get success. The way I try to see it is there's another human on the other side that's going to listen to the song. So when we try to include information, we don't want to be too robotic about it, and we want to kind of give some sense of emotion within the context of the song. And we talk about other areas of their industry. So for example, like live, if it's going really well on the live side, if it's going really well on radio. But really it's about mood as well. We don't have to be in one lane, and we can use tags in a way that makes sure that the music might be positioned on one playlist over here and it's a completely different playlist over there, just increasing the opportunity to get that audience. So your first track might not be on all the official playlists, but it's about having sort of consistency and sort of, believing in the process in many ways. One of the examples that spring to mind where we learn a lot is Arlo's campaign with her early releases. So when we put up Cola, for example, we weren't getting any Spotify editorial really. But where we did see success was from other user playlists and from other tastemaker playlists like KCRW, for example, or Dummy magazine or something like that.
I'm not sure if you caught what Ali said there, but about just really falling in love with the process. And he was talking about one of his artists that earlier on in her career, they weren't getting any playlists, but they didn't stop them. They didn't give up, but they kept on pushing through because they were thinking for the long term. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. We've been on Spotify for a while now, and what I love what Spotify has recently rolled out is the idea that you can connect your Shopify store to your Spotify. So you can sell merch directly to your fans on Spotify to your Shopify store. So we'll have our t-shirts and different print on demand. So this is something you want to set up in your artist's profile. But there's another thing that Ali said that really, really inspired me, which is about not giving up. And I want you to hear this success story.
When we then uploaded Superstar Generation, we started to see much more editorial from Spotify. And I think there is something really amazing to see the music every time you do a release being put back in the same playlist. Arlo, for example, when we started working with her, one of her all-time favorite playlists is Pollen. That's all she wanted to be on. She didn't care about anything else. There was a couple other things outside of our playlisting that she wanted to do, but Pollen was like, I need to be on that Pollen playlist because I listened to that religiously. So when we got the first and second songs on there, it was a really romantic moment because she felt like she was sat in this club of artists that she admired and adored. So with the editorial team, I think they obviously started to see that with her music, and she was constantly on that type of playlist, Pollen or Butter or others. And I think it's just nice to see that consistency.
I love that story so much that they pushed through until they started to get the playlists, especially the ones they wanted. Because the same thing happened to me with my album, I Run With Wolves. You see, I'm in the rock genre, the metal genre, and I always wanted to get on the hard rock editorial playlist. I wanted to get on the kick-ass metal playlist. And I remember we were releasing some singles, and we weren't getting on playlists. But then finally we got one, and it did really, really well. And then we released another song, and then it got on that playlist again. And now almost every single time we release a metal song, because we've been consistent over the years, we got on it. But what I want to really share with you is first identify the Spotify editorial playlist that you want to be on, and make sure that in your description, when you're pitching your songs using the pitching tool, that you suggest that, hey, this would be a great playlist, or my song would be a great fit for that playlist, and consider putting it on there, and maybe list a few of them. Because, it didn't happen to me overnight, but we stayed with it and we stuck with it. The second thing I want to share is the idea of focus. I know it's very easy to want to try this genre and want to try that genre. I do metal for Manifest, but we also write for TV and film. And when I write for TV and film, it's more hip hop. But when I release these kind of hip hop, kind of indie rock tracks, guess what? They're not really getting on the playlist. They're definitely not getting on a metal playlist because that's not the genre that Spotify has even classified me under. And that's the other thing. Spotify actually classifies you under a certain genre. And so that's why it's so important that you focus on not just your career, but focus on one genre and stick with it until it works. Don't keep just trying different things. Follow one course until successful. Now, hopefully I've convinced you that Spotify is the jam, and that's where you want to be if you want to reach an international audience. If you want to get paid every single week from your distributor, then this is the place you want to be, and you definitely want to watch this next video that is above me right here. Check this out, and I'll see you there.